My name is Doug Leisure. Today I wanted to record this video to talk about budgeting. Now, the topic is budgeting, but the point of this video is not to convince you that you need to budget or to show you how and why you should budget, but rather it's aimed at those churches who are using my donation and expense software, who are recording their expenses and donations in my software, those churches who then are already in the process of creating a budget, and what they really want to do is to take their budget, merge it with my software, and I want to show you how to create those cell formulas to pull the data from my expenses tab, and to then pull it over and be able to then compare your budget to what is taking place in actuality based on the information that's being recorded in the expenses tab. I will show you those cell formulas, show you a little bit of how to design those, some different options on how to create the budget compared to what is actually taking place, that comparison, 4 different options on that, so that you can see some different views of that comparison, to give you some options on how you might want to do it for your church. Okay, before we dive into that, just understand that I am presuming that you have at least a decent understanding of Microsoft Excel and cell formulas and formatting and how to create kind of like a report or a design, so that you have some understanding. It does require some level of understanding of those kinds of techniques within Microsoft Excel. What I do love about Excel, if you see some of the cell formulas I'm using and you're unfamiliar with them, you can do a search and find an almost unlimited number of resources, videos, websites that explain it, how to use the different cell formulas. So I'll teach you a little bit about it, but I'm not going to go in depth because there's so many other resources that you can explore to find out about those things specifically. All right, even though this is not a topic about how and why you should budget, we are going to talk about it just a little bit at a high level, at least in terms of my donation and expense software. Remember, this is the 2024 version of my donation and expense software that I'm displaying. It's a sample church, not real data. But the reason I'm saying that is in this version, when I send it out, I do send it out with the donation and the expense part of it together. Yes, there's a parameter you can use to turn off the expense part, but I do send it out with both of them in there. So this video is for those churches that are not just recording donations and producing their receipts for the donors at the end of the year, but those that are also using this to track their income and their expenses, and who are already creating a budget or intend to create a budget, so they can then track how the church is doing compared to what they budgeted or estimated would take place in the coming year. All right, so first of all, in my software, the expenses tab is where we record the details or the history of what is taking place. Now, I named it the expenses tab, but it does also have the income or the donation side of it. And within my software, the way I send it to you, one of the parameters says when I enter a donation and save it, please automatically copy all of the donation information over to this tab. And so we can see that here. It's a deposit on 4/17, and we have a general charity, a missions category or fund that the donations apply to, and so that information is being moved over automatically and recorded here. And so for you, since these things are put here automatically, what you need to do is to enter all of the money going back out, the expenses or the payments, right? So for our missions, we had a certain amount come in the month of March, and every penny that comes in was sent right back out to our to the two missionaries we support. All the money is sent out, and you designate here whether you used a check or a credit card, a debit card, PayPal. Those different methodologies you use for making the payment. That's not the important part. It's being able to record what we did and to categorize and even have subcategories to the expenses. All right. The information here on the expense tab, then we automatically create a report, and the tab is called the expense report. Again, the information here is not just expenses, because the report actually shows all of the money coming in, the donations by month, and then the money going back out are the expenses. And then I know they call it the grand total, but this is really the net of what took place. So in January we spent less money than came in. More money came in than we spent. In March, we spent more money than came in. That's why we have a negative number here. Throughout the year, the grand total would be the net of everything, the year-to-date amounts. And so for the year, we are looking good in the sense that we have spent less money than came in. So this is a good thing. But this is not the same as a budget. Just because we have 9,000, almost 10,000 through the month of May, not truly, there's hardly anything in May, so we're only talking about really having completed January through April. So for the first 4 months, things are good, but this doesn't tell us anything about what's going to happen in the future. We might be looking good now, we might be looking terrible by the time we get to the end of the year. And that's the whole point of trying to create a budget, so that you can put the mathematics in here about what you anticipate is going to happen. Here we have a pastor's salary, and what if we want to give him a raise? Can we do that? What if we want to hire a secretary partway through the year? So the budget is just that idea of trying to numerically put some information there about what you plan to do, what you anticipate is going to happen. Is our electricity going to increase? Are we going to have increases in our rent? Right? Trying to mathematically put all those things in place and take a look at what it's going to look like by the time you get to the end of the year. That's really the idea of budgeting. Let's talk about another small thing related more specifically to churches. And in this sample church, we have some categories or funds. Let's talk about the one called missions. In this case, our donors can choose to give to the missions fund, the missions category, and it's fully up to them how much they want to give, when they want to give, how much they want to give. And whatever comes into missions, we turn around and every penny that comes in January, we send all of that back out to the missionaries we support. Every penny that comes in goes out. The reason I'm saying it this way is to help you understand that in this kind of a fashion, there's no reason to budget for missions, because there's no need. It just, whatever comes in goes out, and we have no real control over what we anticipate happening here. We just send it right back out. Same thing with a lot of those special donations we take. Right, here's an example. In January, where I live, January is cold, so there's an organization that will go buy coats for any kids that need a coat. And so we did a special donation for the first couple of weeks, raised $125. Every penny of that was sent over to that organization and then used it to buy coats. So same idea. Vacation Bible School, right? We started in February. We want to do a vacation Bible school in June, so we're doing special donations. In May, we'll continue to take donations, but we're also going to start to buy supplies for Vacation Bible School in the month of May. Again, every penny that comes in is going to be used and spent for that purpose. No need to budget it. Charity is a similar thing. The money that's collected here for charity, some people would use the word benevolence. That money is kind of set aside, and when there's a need, a widow in our church needed some groceries, so we went out and bought her groceries. Something happened in the Smith family, and we gave them a donation to help them out. Right, so it's the kind of thing that we don't want to budget for. However, there might be some money collected that isn't spent quite yet, and so in a previous video I showed you how you can enhance this expense report, customize it to show your fund balances, so you can kind of track some of this, especially things like the charity. How much money do we have sitting in that fund to be used if we have a need? So that would be another video to look at if you're just simply interested in understanding what the balances are in your different funds. But today's purpose again is the idea of those churches who then have already created, want to, or plan to create a budget. How do we use your budget and merge it in with this software, and then start to be able to display what is actually taking place compared to what we budgeted or anticipated, estimated would take place. So let's dig in a little bit further. Okay, I'm going to start with I guess concept number one is you want to create your own separate worksheet or tab where you can put your budget in there, manipulate it a little bit, and then I'll show you how you can pull the information over to show what actually took place, and so we can compare that then to your budget. So create a new tab, and this will be your budget, and I'm going to show you 4 different versions or 4 different options for displaying that. But let's dig in a little bit. Okay, first thing is you will want to go ahead and enter your budget information. And so probably the biggest important thing there would be the idea that we want to show it the January through December, and I'm just titling these as budget, and then we'll want to get a simple total here so we can know what the budget looks like for the whole year. You don't have to do it this way, but if we kind of follow the same thing we're doing on the expense report, you would have the money coming in, or the income, on the top, and I'm showing the general fund here again because I said we don't need to budget for charity, missions, or any special donations that we take. So the general would be the income. Then on the expense, we do that below, and now we just start to list all of the different categories and subcategories, kind of matching what we did on the expense report. All right, so we have our building maintenance, and that's just going to be a sum of all of these different expenses that are part of building maintenance, so each of the subcategories. And then these are just, again, these are your budget numbers, whatever you anticipate to happen. If there's going to be an increase, so we know that typically the electricity is going to go up in the summer because we have to run the air conditioner all the time. On the other side, the gas will be higher in the cold months for us where we live, and we'll use much less of it in the summer. That kind of an idea. So it's just a matter of trying to look ahead and anticipate what's going to take place. Same thing with our other things. And here's the example I mentioned earlier. We are paying the pastor's salary each month, and then we want to plan to give him an increase Um, yep, sorry, right here. We want to plan to give him an increase in October. Oh, the other thing we would like to do is we would like to hire a secretary in July. So just mathematically putting those values here so we can compare what we anticipate coming in to what's going out and make sure that we can support what we intend to do, what our plans are. All right, knowing um, that there are going to be fluctuations throughout the year and that we intend to increase salaries by the new hire and by the raise, what is it going to take to support that? And so just as a simple way of calculating that, um, this number is generally what has been coming in. If we look back over the last 6 months, 12 months, this is the amount that has been coming in, and we are seeing an increase in attendance. We're going to start doing some work to try to do some training on biblical tithing, and so we're anticipating that each month things are going to go up by 0.25%, 2.5%. Right, so we're anticipating that there will be an increase, and then we're just trying to display that mathematically, that increase over time, so that we can then compare all the money coming in to all the money going out. What is our net? Are we losing money or gaining money as we go through the year? And then what we're going to do next is start to build some formulas to pull our detail information so that we can then show what is really taking place, the actual amounts coming in and going out, so that we can then track as we move through the year how we're doing. And then I'll show you some techniques for estimating the remainder of the year, so we can say as we're moving through the year, how are we doing, and if we continue this way, what is it going to look like by the time we get to the end of the year. All right, let's again, I'm presuming that you are already building your budget, and that's not the real point of this video. So now that you have a budget, some of the techniques that we need to look at, I'm going to again suggest that you identify these as the budget numbers, the different months, and what I'm doing up here, I'm putting just a month number, 1 for January, 2 for February, that kind of a thing. And these month numbers will be important to us as we start looking at some cell formulas that will help us build the formulas to automatically go get what we need. The other thing that I'm going to suggest that you consider doing is using what Excel calls groups. So under the data menu in Excel, you highlight the 12 months of budget information, and you click the button over here called group. And what that does is it creates a group that if you click the button here, it hides all 12 of those columns. And the reason we didn't include the total is because as you're building this out, you want to get to the place where you can look at how things are looking in total, the total budget, the total of what actually is coming in, and even a total variance. And that's the whole concept of this grouping idea, where we can use that to have the detail and then quickly hide or unhide the detail and still show the totals to get a higher level snapshot of how things are going. So just one of the concepts, Excel calls that grouping. And again, if you need more information, go do a search on the grouping capabilities within Excel. All right, we talked about putting the income at the top, listing all of the expenses, and then calculating Are we doing better or worse? What's the net? Did we gain or did we lose for the month? That kind of an idea. All right, the next thing we're going to look at, let's go ahead and start looking at building those cell formulas to go get the data that we needed. First thing I want to do is to say that I want to hide our budget, because what I'm really focused on now are the actuals, what is actually taking place. All right, let's start with let's start with the concept first that says when I am looking at the information back here in detail of what is coming in and what is being expended, all of our payments, they're always listed by a date. So what does that mean for our actuals over here? It means that we want to figure out for month 1, which is January, when does that begin and when does it end? Because I want to actually create a formula that says go gather all of my income, my general things that are hitting my general fund, when the date is greater than January 1st and less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to January 31st. Okay? And what you need to know is that I have created for you over on the parameters tab. Go down here to the bottom a little bit. And because I have needed this in hundreds of other cell formulas myself, I've created over here a list that shows the month number, the date that the month begins, the date that the month ends. So I already have this list for you. So what we want to do is we just want to build a lookup, right? If I'm in month 4, April, search down here to the 4th row, find the beginning date and in column B and the ending date here in column C, right? And then I can use those beginning and end dates in my other formulas. So let's go take a quick look at that. All right, so in order to build that, we will use what's called the index formula, or the index function. So the index function says, first of all, great, what array, and sorry, that's just a funny way of saying what range of cells am I searching down through. And so we just simply point here to the parameters, and we point to this range of cells. That is going to be our array. It's what we're searching through. And then the second question is, and how many rows am I looking to tell me what row I'm looking on, right? So this is here's 12 rows of data, and you tell me which row number to go down to, and I'll pull the data from there. So the row number we care about is already displayed up here in row 2 up here, right? Our month number. So it becomes a really simple formula to go look over there at that range and go down one row, because we're in month 1, right? The same thing in month 4, we'll go down and find April. And because we're looking in column B, we're picking up the beginning date. So we just do that same kind of a thing to pick up the ending date, and all we're doing instead is looking in column C. All right. So that is the first part of building this, is to understand that I've already given you a list of beginning dates and ending dates for each month. And that'll again, we'll see when we build the whole formula out, that'll give us a go look for anything that's greater than or equal to this date or less than or equal to this other date. Now, as we build the formula, you do need to understand that when you build the formula, because we're actually searching for something, a date that is greater than or equal to January 1st or February 1st, that we need to actually put this greater than or equals to sign in front of it. And so the way I accomplish that is the greater than or equal to sign concatenated with what we looked up over here, but we use the text function to turn it from basically from an internal date number into a visible date that really ends up being text. So it turns the lookup here, which is really an internal number, it turns it into text, readable text that says greater than or equal to 2/1/2024. Okay, so it's visible text because the formula we're going to use requires basically text to go do its searching. All right, so that's kind of the idea. Now let's take a look at the next part of it, looking up income. Okay, so the first part of looking up the income is again going back and looking at the expenses to see how that works. We want to search down through all of column F because that's where the income is stored. Search through all of column F and sum up everything that matches the word general in the subcategory. So column D will contain the word general. Every time we see that, we start to summarize it or add it together. That'll be the first part of it, is getting that part of it to work. Once that's working, then we add the part where we say it's greater than or equal to the month that we're in. So that's how we'll build that formula. Let's go take a quick look at that. So for the income lookup, we're using the SUMIF S. Really good formula. If you don't know it, go do some searching on it and learn that one. A really good function for you. But the way it works is just simply tell me what range we're using that I will summarize, what contains your amounts, your values. And for us, that is, as I said, column F, the donation column. That's what we're summarizing. The next part then is, what is the criteria range? All that means is simply what other column contains what we're looking for. And that's column D. Remember, that's the subcategory. And in there, we're looking for the word general. Okay? And so that's the formula. And so what it's doing is it's calculating $35,000. But that's not for a specific period. That's just everything in that column that has the word general associated with it in the subcategory. So the next thing we want to do is we take that and we enhance the formula a little bit by adding some more things to it. So not only are we doing summing column F, where column D equals the word general, now we take one more criteria, which is column B. Column B is our column that contains our dates. And we say, show me everything where the date in column B is greater than or equal to, and then this is where we did that lookup, right, based on us being in the second month, column 2, we do a lookup, we find the date there, and we turn it into text. All right, this is getting a little geeky, I get that, I understand that, but just follow with me through here a little bit further. So that gives us 24,000, and that's where everything is greater than or equal to February 1st. So we do that same kind of a thing. We take the next step and we add the last part to it, where we say, and where column B, the date, is less than or equal to, and we go get the ending date. Okay, so that's kind of how everything would look. Now, I guess what I'm suggesting to help you out with making shorter, much more usable formulas is let's take here I'm actually defining the greater than or equal to and the whole lookup. I'm defining it inside of the cell formula, and this will work, but knowing that I'm going to use that same kind of a cell formula in multiple rows and multiple columns, I think the better thing you would want to do is actually go ahead and build that part of the cell formula once, and then let's just simply look at or reference those cell formulas by just looking to the values, the text values that's in these two cells. See what I'm doing is I replaced all of that geekiness. I did the geekiness once, and now in all the other formulas we'll just simply look once here where it has already created the cell formula once, and we won't recreate all of that geeky cell formula multiple times. It just makes things a little more efficient. So that'll be the concept that we go for. And what you'll see up here is I actually added a couple additional rows, and in those rows that's where we will do the geekiest part of our cell formulas, to go do the lookup, find the beginning date, the ending date, add the greater than or equal to, or the less than or equal to as part of it, so that all of those geeky things happen just once. Everywhere else where we need to reference it, it doesn't have to do the geekiness over and over and over and over again. Okay, so that is the income lookup. Looking up the expenses is going to be a kind of a similar concept. Let's go back and look here at the expenses for a second. First of all, we don't get our values from column F because those are deposits. On the expenses, we get the values from column E. So that'll be the range we're summing. The next part is, and where do we get, where does it tell us what we're looking up? So there's two options here. If we're gonna budget in detail and also get our actuals in detail, like all the way down to electricity, gas, rent, well then we will want to look for the word rent in column D, the subcategory. I'll show you another option when we're done here where we say we really just want to go get the actuals for comparison at the category level. And if you're going to do that, then you would be looking for the word building maintenance in column C, the category. And just like before, our date range will come from column B. So that kind of tells us what we need to do. So let's take a look at that. So the subcategory lookup, using the SUMIF S. All right. So again, as we looked at over here, we're going to sum from column E, those are the payments, and we're going to look in column D for the word rent, because that's looking at the subcategory. And then we'll match the dates to what we built here. Remember, the geeky formula will be built just once here for a greater than equal to and a less than or equal to. So that would be the formula then for subcategories. If you want to do a similar thing, building a formula for looking up categories, then that would look like this formula. Okay, summarizing the values in E, but searching through column C, the categories, for the word building maintenance, and then the date range above. Okay, so hopefully that gives you an idea of how we need to build the formula, and just some techniques that I use for building my way in building it step by step, so that when I get to the end, I know that I've created it correctly. Kind of my thought pattern for building these kinds of formulas. All right, now let's go use them. So we come back here. in January, and we can basically kind of steal what we did down below. We just bring it up here. And so one of the big things when we're trying to build it up here, we have over on the side here in column A, we have the words that we care about when it comes time to go do that lookup. Right? I'm looking for the word general, but I already have general here in column A. I'm looking for the word rent, but rent is already identified here in column A. So rather than hard coding the lookup, we just simply point to the cell that contains that same word. That's really the only difference between what we built down below and what we're doing up here. All right, and so building that that cell formula here makes it pretty generic, and I can once I build it, I can then copy that easily across to all the other months. Okay. Let's see, what do you need to know just real quick about one little thing about the cell formulas. Absolute reference. If you're not familiar with this concept, you need to go do some searching and study that out, because we built the formula once pointing to column F, and then we're going to copy it from here to here to here to here, across the columns. So as we copy it, we do not want F, what it's looking in, to turn into G and then H and then I. The column to look in to summarize the data, right, has to always be F. So we have to use what's called an absolute reference so that the F portion never changes. Same thing with the D that contains the word general, right, the subcategory. It must always look in D, even as I copy it to the next cell, to the next cell, to the next cell. Keep these parts absolutely fixed on column F and column D. In a similar way, the part that column A that contains the word we're looking for, right? As we copy it over, we want the column A to stay A, but then as we copy it down from electricity to gas to rent, we want the column number to switch from 15 to 16 to 17. So this reference here, we are putting the $sign, which is what makes it fixed or absolute on the A portion, but not on the 8 portion, not on the row number. Column yes, row no. So you need to kind of understand that part of the concept of absolute references. In a very similar way, as we copy it, as we copy the formula from January to February, this part of the formula, we want Q to change from Q to R as we move from January to February. So the column part does not have a $sign, but as we copy it down, we always want to find our beginning date in row 3. We don't want the row 3 part to change. Same thing with row 4 down here. So you just need to understand a little bit about that, about the absolute reference and where you put the $sign. That is important as you're building formulas to understand that. All right, let's just jump down here real quick and take a look then at building our expense part. And so I told you we created an expense formula down here. Okay, this sample is doing rent in April. So let's just simply copy that up to, let's just go ahead and put it in rent in April. Okay, however, I built it down below and pointed to those cells. What I really want to do is point them to the cells up above, because just the technique we typically use is to put some of this information that's required below to calculate the right dates, or in this case date ranges. We try to put a lot of that information up above, and then ultimately before we before we are done with everything, we'll hide the rows that people don't need to see on a regular basis. But I would, just as an example, showing it to you down below. So let's just simply repoint it here to say that it should pick up above in rows 3 and 4. It should pick up the formulas there for the date range. Then the other thing we'll do, we hard-coded rent as our example, and this is where I'm saying instead of hard-coding the name, we should just simply use the name that's already here in column A. And column A, the column part, needs that dollar sign. We already have the dollar sign on the row 3 and row 4, but we didn't have the right absolute part here on column A, so we'll add that. And we get the same 200. The difference is this formula can now be used in any period and for any subcategory. Okay, so we built a formula, and we built it as a very reusable formula, and that's the whole point. Okay, I've already used that. I've already created that same formula and applied it down here to Christian Education and the employees. Okay, what else? Last thing, I guess, related to this. When we get to the expense part of it, we have a bunch of these items here, and then we want to do a total of all of these detail items so we can actually calculate the category total, so the building maintenance. Now you could put a sum formula in here, but I'm just gonna just so I could show this to you. I also created the same kind of an idea with something that Excel calls a subtotal. And again, you can do a lot of searching on this and get a lot of information about that. But the idea of the subtotal is that I'm going to have lots and lots and lots of subtotals in here, and then eventually I want to create one more formula that will give me the total but it will ignore any of the intermediary subtotal formulas in there. So it'll using a subtotal across a range that contains other subtotals. If I just use a simple sum, I'm going to basically double everything. So the subtotal will not only create a subtotal of these items, it will also allow us to run a subtotal across everything, and it will ignore any functions or formulas in here that are themselves subtotals. So just a kind of a handy formula that you might want to put in your pocket when you're creating lots of things that basically are subtotals, and you want to then total everything without pointing later on to individual rows with subtotals. You just want to do it across a broad range, and especially useful if you're going to have to come back and insert additional things. Like we see that quite a bit in the budgeting world, where today I have these three items, and then as we're working our way through trying to design and create the budget, oh, we need another subcategory. Oh, we need more categories. Oh, and you're just adding constantly things. And so using this kind of a formula makes it really simple to just insert some rows, throw in another set of categories with a formula to calculate the subtotal of that category, and then let this formula just simply continue to work as you add more subtotals in here. So just a nice function to have. And then finally, really simple formula to just simply say all of our income minus our total expense will give us our net, our gain or our loss. Okay, final thing we want to look at. Sorry, I'm going to talk about one other thing, and then we'll look at the variance part of it. Okay, so in this kind of a layout, what you are seeing is that we have data that has taken place January, February, March, and April. We've probably completed April based on the amounts that we're seeing. There's been a little bit of data in May, but it's very little. It's not complete. We don't have any income here, right? Um, so so the first 4 months are really good to look at. The last 8 months are not helpful at all at this point in time. Now, as we continue through the year and get more data, these will fill in and they'll have a lot of value to us. Okay, let's go over now. We create another set of columns then where we're going to calculate the variance. All that means is for the month of January, we had, let's expand that. We budgeted for 7,100. We actually had 10,800 come in, right? So we're doing much better than we budgeted, much better than we expected, than we estimated. So that's a good thing. So our variance is our actual minus our budget, so that a good thing shows up as a positive number. Let's say that another way around. In March, it's being displayed as a negative number. In March, we budgeted 7,500, but what actually came in was 6,300, much less than we budgeted for. So it's a negative thing, so the number is displayed as a negative amount. Okay, and then when we get down below, we do a similar thing. In the expenses, though, we typically throw it the other way around. Let's see if I can explain that. Okay, in January, this is our budget for Sunday school. We expect that we're going to spend, and again, this is a sample company, dumb numbers, don't worry about that. But we budgeted that in January. We're going to spend $25 for Sunday school. We'll do that again in April, July, October. Okay, but we budgeted to spend $25. We actually spent nothing. So that's a good thing. we spent less than we budgeted. So if we do the budget minus actual, then it shows our expenses where we spent less as a positive number. Okay, so that's just typically how we do it on the income versus how we do it on the expense. So we'll take this cell formula that I showed you here and we'll just apply it to all of the building maintenance and all the way through December. Okay. Now it is calculating variances even for these places where we have $0, and it's showing it as very positive things because we had no expense. Well, the truth is we had no expense yet, right? As we move through time, there will be expense later, but there just is nothing there now. So let's take a look at another way of displaying the budget versus actual and the variance in a way that kind of helps us get around this problem where we don't have any future actuals and therefore our variances look really weird and maybe not of any value until we get the actual data filled in. So let's take a look at another option. So all I did was to copy what we did the first time and then started to adjust it to give you some opportunities to change the way we do things. So the first one showed you kind of what we built, how we built it. Now we're going to actually make it work better. So the first thing I'm going to do is what we need to make this thing work a whole lot better, the concept, the idea that we're trying to follow here is for me to be able to say, I'm going to tell you on the right in the program, I'm going to tell you that we have actuals filled in through, and we'll let you pick the month. Hey, I know that we're done with March. April doesn't have any data yet, so I will select March, and then we'll have the cell formulas use that selection so that when we are pulling our actual data from the expenses tab, we will pull it only for the month that has actuals in it. For the future months where we don't have anything yet, we'll just circle back here and pick up our budgeted numbers. So what that'll build for us is on this set of actuals, we'll have actual, because that's where we have data. Then we'll pull budget all the way to the end of the year. So what that's going to do for us is it's going to say this is what has actually taken place so far, and this is what I estimate will take place for the remaining of the year, and therefore this will be my estimated total for the year. And now I can do a month-to-month comparison across the entire year, and it all now starts to make sense and gives us a variance that has a lot of value to it by estimating the future months. Okay, so how do we do that? The first thing is to create a lookup. Actually, sorry, Excel, under the data ribbon, Excel calls this data validation. And in the data validation, we select the type called list. I'm going to pick an item off of a list. Where's the list? Okay, let me show you. I actually provided that for you as well over in the translation tab. In the translation tab, I have a list of all of the months. Okay, little thing here. If you are in the United States and you're doing this work, you can use column E, which is the English only version of the months. If you are not in the United States and you're trying to follow along, what you really want to use for your lookup will be the months over here, because this will be the part, column B, that can switch from English to your language or to a combination of English and your language. So it's just going to be a very nice way to do the lookup using something that is can be switched back and forth between the languages. So it would be column B for you. All right, but what we're doing is we're just doing a lookup. You know what? Let's go ahead and just do that. Okay. It's going to be too easy to do that. Data validation, we're looking up from a list, and the source is going to be column B. All right, so that'll give us our lookup, and it'll do it in a way that if I switch the language from English to Spanish in this case, then our lookup will be in Spanish. Make sense? So, all right. In order to complete the rest of this, we'll go back to English for just a second. All right, so the lookup comes from the translation tab, and then and this is what the as you are interacting with this budget comparison, you will pick and choose from the list here. So this is what you see visibly. The next part of it then is we need to take that selection and turn it back into a number. Okay, so we're going to use a function called the match function. Okay, so the match is saying, great. You want me to look up something from somewhere. Start with what you want me to look up. We're going to look up whatever you selected here in your drop down. And where are we going to look? We are going to look back here in the translation, and we're going to just simply look down through this list. Okay, I'm going to hit the function key F4 to turn that into an absolute reference so it doesn't move as we move the cell formula. You know what, actually doesn't matter because that particular cell formula is not going to move. It's always going to stay where it's at, so it won't matter. Sorry about that. The next part is that we need to say we are going to do an exact match. So those are the three parameters used on that particular function. Okay, so we select April, and it'll tell us it's the 4th month. We select October, and it'll tell us it's the 10th item or the 10th month. So just a visible thing you see doing the lookup, and behind the scenes we figure out what month number it is. Okay, now that we have a month number, what we can do next is we can come over here to our cell formulas for the actuals. Right, and what we're going to do, we already had a formula that knows how to go look up and find the actuals. What we need to do is add a little more intelligence that says if that month number is I'm going the wrong way. If this month number right here in R3 is greater than the month number from our selection, then go look up the budget, because it's a future month. I don't have any actuals for it, right? So go get me the budget instead. Now if it's not greater than, then there are actuals based on your selection. There should be actuals in there. So therefore go use our formula that we created before to go get the actual. So let's move over here to we chose April, right? So let's look at this in May. So if 5 is greater than B3, 4, and it's not, right? I have actuals through April, so 5 is not greater than 4. So in that case, I'm going to go get my budget amount from column H. If that was not true, then we would go run the rest of the formula to go get our actuals. So that's just simply giving us actual, 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 actual. And starting here, it gives us budget, budget, budget the rest of the year. And I just did use that exact same formula, at least the beginning part of it, and apply that up here to these titles. So if it's greater than our lookup month, if it's greater than, then put the word budget, otherwise put the word actual. So that allows the word budget or actual to be something that also changes based on our selection. Actual, actual through February, budget throughout the rest of the year. So the titles change and the lookup changes. And then we just use that same concept down here for all of the actuals, right? The first part of it is that same if logic. If it's greater than, go get the budget, otherwise go get our actuals. Okay, so I just wanted to show that to you so that you can see how we can actually replace future actuals with the budgeted numbers and actually then calculate a reasonable estimate of what should take place throughout the year, and therefore get a variance that has a lot of value, not just in the months where we have actuals, but throughout the rest of the year. And then this whole concept of being able to do the grouping makes it really quick and easy to see how are we doing so far throughout the year. What is the budget compared to our estimated year look like in the variance, and then we have the drop down to choose and modify that. Okay, but it's giving us a reasonable estimate and variance, and we have the drop down to make the adjustments. And if you want to see the detail, just expand it out. Okay, that's a nice way of displaying the budget actual variance using the grouping, using the drop down to really fine control whether we're grabbing budget numbers or actual numbers to fill in our actual columns. Let's take another look at a slightly different option. So we're going to go kind of use the same layout we had before. So I'll explain what the difference is here. Instead of doing our budget here, our actuals or estimated actuals, right? And then a variance, we are instead trying to display the budget actual variance in the individual rows. So related to general, here's our budgeted general that we saw before. And from there, we're going to go get our actuals. And then we'll calculate in the next row the variance. Okay, so it's just showing the budget actual variance formatted in a different way, laid out in a different way. So you understand the concepts that we did all the mathematics on getting the actuals, on calculating a variance, so you don't need to know that at all. Nothing really new there. Just the layout is really what changed. The big change is going to be down here on the expense. So the difference here is that we are doing our individual budgets for each of the subcategory items. So we're budgeting electric, so we can say, hey, the electric is going to go up in the summer, then back down in the winter. Our gas is going to go down in the summer. Our rent is going to be steady this year, or it's going to be steady until some month, and then it's going to go up, right? So we're still budgeting the detail level, so we have the fine control over it. However, we are going to then grab our actuals at the category level, so we compare what's actually taken place at the category and the variance at the category level. So the big difference there is, and I showed you when we were building the first go around, how we can adjust the formula that gets the actuals. How we can do a simple adjustment so that we're looking same if logic, so we can control it through the lookup. But what we're doing is we're looking then, searching down through the category column C, for the word building maintenance, which is our category descriptor. So that's the biggest change here is budgeting at the detail level, showing the budget compared to actual and variance, though at the category level. All right, and as I said, we still have that same drop down to do the lookup, so that the actuals will pull budgeted numbers rather than actuals if it's a future month, a month in which we still do not yet have any actuals. Okay, so that's a different layout. I just wanted to show that to you, so you can get a concept of how that might work. let's see, is there anything? Yeah, just a small thing to show you. We have actuals for April, but for May we do not. We'd have to pull the budget number. So what are we doing there? Just real quick, a subtle little difference. If our month number is greater than our lookup month, what we're going to pull is the budgeted total, right? Otherwise, go look up from our expense tab based on the category descriptor. The subtle difference is between this and what we did on the prior tab was just we just what we're looking up is the sum of all of the budget details. Okay, just wanted to explain that one real quick. Last look, and then we'll be done. Let's look at the other methodology here for doing looking at the budget compared to the actuals. And in this case, again, we kind of copied what we did in the earlier part, copied it over so that we had our budget that we created, budget by month at the detail level, right? Doing a subtotal at the category level. So that same idea. Then we also have our same actuals, and the actual has that if statement in there, so we can based on the period that we choose here, the month that we choose, we'll do either actuals for April, and the rest of the year will be budgeted amounts. So all of that is the same. We just brought that over. Okay. I did delete all of the variance stuff because what we're going to do is we're going to insert some additional columns here, and what we're going to display is more of a specific view of the current month, and that's what we select here. The month we're looking at. How are things looking for this month, and how do things look year to date? Meaning, this is only the month of April, and this is the sum of January through April. So it's a common but different way of looking at things: current month and year to date. And then because we have those other columns and the totals in here, right? So when I collapse it, what we compare is the current month that we're looking at. How do we do this month? Year to date, how are we doing so far this year? And by the way, if I've spent, let's take a look at building maintenance. This month we budgeted 448, we spent 445. Wow, we're really close. We're looking good this month. But how are we doing so far this year? Well, this year so far we've budgeted 1,800. We spent 1,700. Pretty close, but we're still looking really good. But how much do we have to spend for the rest of the year? Well, we budgeted for the rest of the year, for the whole year. For the whole year, we're going to spend 5,000. So it's a kind of a look that helps you see in case you spend too much early on. Kind of helps you to see how much farther you have to go. And you could always add a remaining amount in here. That's sometimes what people will do. We budgeted this much. This is what we budgeted for the whole year. The remainder is, this minus that. So that might be another couple of extra columns to throw in here to really help out. And by the way, based on our spending so far, this is what we estimate the end of the year to look like. Again, maybe a thing that compares that shows you the remaining amount based on your estimated total. That might be a really good thing to have, an extra column to have in here that would help you out to know how much more you have to spend. So just some ideas. But let's take a look at how this one's created. So we come up here, and I'm going to expand these back out. Okay, so we have our lookup again. Our lookup where we choose the month, and then from that we do the other lookup so we can calculate that it's going to be the 4th month. Why is that important? It's because our when we want to display the budget for the current month, we want to say, okay, go over here to where we have all of the budgets and count 1, 2, 3, 4, and bring that 4th value over here and display it, so that when the month changes to February, right now we're going to go 1, 2, and pick up the value from the 2nd column. And the way we're doing that is just this thing called the index command. Right? So the index says, where do I find my data? That's what they call the array. And what row number am I looking in? Well, we're not looking in rows, so we fill in a 0 because we're not going up or down any rows, but we're going across to a different column. And that column will know what column to look in based on this value up here, based on our drop down, our lookup. So this will tell us go over 2 columns from here and look that up. Okay, so it's the index. All right, and then the actual is literally the same thing. The difference is just simply that we are doing that same index, looking at the column number and finding our values over in this set of actuals. Well, it's actually a mixture, actuals and budgets. But go do the lookup over in those columns, and that's all. Variance is really the simple actual minus budget. Down here it'll be budget minus actual. All right, so that's how we do the current month and tie it to this lookup. The next part is kind of a similar thing, but it's this little formula is going to be a little funky, so let's just take a quick look at it. So it starts with the offset. And again, this is another one you can go look up if you need to. But the offset says I have a starting point, and from the starting point I'm going to go down some rows, over some columns, and then I'll tell you when you get there, it's also going to I'm going to give me a range of columns that is this high and this wide. Okay, that's the long description based on what it's doing here. Let's go through the more direct way that we're using it. Okay, so I know that I want to look in column 4. Actually, what I really want to say is I want to start in column 1, and this tells me where I want to end. Okay, I want to sum starting in row 1, starting in column 1 over through and ending at column 4, because this tells us we want to end in the 4th month. So the offset says starting at L9, go down 0 rows, go over 0 columns. I'm still back in L9, and then the height and the width is going to be 1 row high by 1 row, or height and width, and then the width is going to be 4 columns. So from here it's going to be a width of 4 columns and the height of 1. Okay, and we just summarize all of that. So that's how this formula works. to pick up budget. The actual is the same thing, only we're starting with the first value here in January in these actual columns. Okay, so those are the formulas we use then for the single period lookup, and then the month or the year to date from January through that same period lookup. And again, that gives us a nice looking way to look at and try to make sense out of what is taking place in our actuals as compared to our budget for the current month and then for the year to date. Also a display of our total budget, our total estimated, and as I suggested, maybe a amount remaining would be a really good couple of extra columns to add in here. All right, I know this has been a pretty lengthy video. Those are the kinds of things I wanted to go through and show you and give you a lot of understanding of the cell formulas we're using, but also some different options in the layout, the methodology, and hopefully you can find something here that will really help you. If not, send me an email, give me a call, and we can talk about something that might meet your need better than the things I've shown you. All right, thank you.